Hello, hello, hello. Back-to-back weeks on Thursdays, nonetheless. This will kind of be our new standard time, Thursday afternoons at 2 o'clock after we were for so long on Monday mornings. But most importantly, Sia, my good friend, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Actually, I really am doing great. Did I tell
What?
you? Can I
Well,
share?
yes, of course I want to know, but I'm supposed to be shocked that you're doing great. I always want you to do great.
I know you do. And you know what? You always have me walk tall, and I'm always walking tall. But today, in particular, I'm kind of excited to walk tall. So, as you know, I've got my little vanity channel, YouTube channel. And
Yep.
for whatever reason, in March, YouTube just algo wasn't loving me and it was just dying on the vine. But apparently, in the last week or two, it's picked right back up again where it used to be old numbers. Like you guys, it literally got from thousands of views to less than like 200 views. Like it was
Okay.
like catastrophic drop. But I'm 8 subs away from 1,000 subscribers.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Okay, so if you're out there in YouTube or LinkedIn land watching the appeal or listening to the appeal on Instagram, go to the channel called Sia
mildly obsessed now.
Mildly Obsessed Now. Click that subscribe button. 8 more people to get Sia and her friends to 1,000 subscribers as they talk all about the K-pop band Stray Kids, which I know nothing about, but I'm so proud of you, Sia. It doesn't surprise me that that channel's taking off with all of your talents and things of that sort. And as you said, I'm doing great too. Things are going well. The weather's turning here in Chicago. We're going to talk about some summer activities with our next guest, but most importantly for me, it's baseball season. And there's games being played, and my little guy Lucas is having practice. So this is my favorite time of year. It's also gala season, as you know. April's a huge month for me. This tomorrow, I'm working for Orphans of the Storm, a pet shelter in the north suburbs of Chicago. And then I have Oak Lydon, and of course Dragonfly, having Jessica last week. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up for us. And I'm just super excited, but I'm really excited for this show. And of course, as you know, this show, Sia, is not possible without our presenting sponsor, Speakeasy Custom Tattoo. And if you don't know, Speakeasy Custom Tattoo is located in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago in the historic Flatiron Building. With over 30 years of experience, they have curated a staff of magnificently talented local and international artists, and they continue to host monthly guests from all around the world. They're an appointment-only custom tattoo shop offering a wide range of styles in a clean and relaxing atmosphere. And no matter the style you're looking for, they will absolutely help your vision come to life. So be sure to check out their artists on their website at www.speakeasycustomtattoo.com. I hope to see you there soon because, as you know, Patrick is my personal tattoo artist, and I'm so proud to display his beautiful artwork. But we have a lot to talk about, Sia, so let's kick off the show and we'll get underway.
Awesome.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, I think it's like every 3 or 4 years they say like podcasts or shows like ours should like rebrand or refresh or maybe get some new intro or outro. And this is like now what, season 3, I think, of The Appeal. But that song's not going anywhere. I absolutely love it. It is perfect for us and all we're about and all we do. So thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you act like I wrote the song. I did not. I paid for the licensing for it, though. I will say I did hunt. I mean, I went through a long list of stuff that I was like, "Oh, Chris, what do you like? Think of this? Do you think of that? Is it the right tone?" Yeah,
Yeah,
all that
that's why
good
you're the
stuff.
best in the business, right? Like everything we do is not possible without you. And so I just want to say thank you for all you do for me and for Hail Hail Auctions and The Appeal and everything else that I'm a part of. But as you know, we have a very special guest today, and I'd love to keep you on stage and keep filling your head with compliments. I'm so excited to welcome Mr. Doug McConnell, the CEO of Chicago River Swim, to the show. If you don't know, Chicago River Swim is an organization designed to raise money for ALS and water safety awareness. 500 swimmers will jump into the Chicago River and swim up to 2 miles, raising money and, again, awareness for ALS and water safety. And not only is Doug most impressive for having started Chicago River Swim, but he's an accomplished competitive swimmer of over 50 years, having swam in some of the most dangerous bodies of water in the United States and in the world, frankly, the English Channel, Manhattan Island, and the Chicago River. Me being from Chicago, it may not be dangerous in terms of wave sizes or rocky shores, but it's dangerous for other reasons, and I'll talk to Doug about that. So, Sia, I'm going to kick you backstage and welcome Doug to the show.
Thank you much, and you guys have a great show, and all I want to say is this. So I guess he's been swimming since he was, like, in utero? Is that the deal? So ask him that for me, would you? I'd appreciate it.
There he is. Doug, how are you? Welcome to The Appeal. It's my honor to have you on. I'm so excited for our guests, our listeners, to learn more about the Chicago River Swim and all you've done throughout your life. So if you don't mind, please introduce yourself, all you're about, what you've done, and a little bit about the Chicago River Swim.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's a real treat to be here and so forth. I couldn't help but have a smile on my face. I'll get back to Sia's question here in a minute, but Doug McConnell, I am at least professionally an investment banker. I raise money for companies. And many years ago, our family was hit pretty hard by ALS, and ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and so forth, closely related to a number of other neurodegenerative diseases. There is no cure for ALS, and I remember when my father was diagnosed, he kind of dropped that bomb on our family, and said two things that were kind of interesting. One was that he said in 3 to 5 years, he said, I either starve to death or suffocate. And, and so that, as you would imagine, it hit us like a ton of bricks. He also, to reassure my sisters and me and our kids and so forth, he also said that, that his was just a lightning bolt, and it wasn't the kind that went in families and so forth. So we took some comfort from the fact that that this wasn't something that was going to be ongoing. As it turns out, he way outlived the original sort of expectation, lived with it actually for 12 years. And then sadly, a few months after he passed away, one of my sisters was also diagnosed. And it was really after that diagnosis that we said, look, we got to do something here. This is just the feeling of powerlessness that you have when someone you love is diagnosed with a disease for which there is no cure. It's pretty overwhelming, and it happens that I've, as she said earlier, I've been a swimmer for a long time. Started as a 5-year-old, and in competitive swimming and so on. Was able to swim through college and whatnot, and then in more recent years got into open water swimming, which is, of course, it helps to be a good pool swimmer, but it's very different from pool swimming, just because there are all these new variables to deal with and so on. So it was my sister Ellen who had the idea of trying to marry up the fundraising expectations that we had, or goals that we had to support ALS research, along with open water swimming. And you have kind of a niche disease with a niche sport, and so on. Boy, her idea was just brilliant. She called the umbrella organization, the nonprofit, A Long Swim. She borrowed the acronym from ALS, and we were off. Sadly, we lost Ellen in 2018, but not before we had raised a truckload of money for ALS research and so forth. And we're just keeping that process kind of going. And I know we're going to talk about the Chicago River Swim, but that's really just been an outgrowth of the swims that I've done and the swims that we've hosted for other people.
Yeah, no, it's so inspirational in so many ways. And first off, I want to just extend my condolences to the loss of your father and sister to a horrible disease. Well, I haven't been impacted by it personally, fortunately. Obviously, we never know what our future might hold. But for those out there, you may know I'm a huge Chicago sports fan, right? If I'm not mistaken, Steve McMichael, Mongo just recently was lost due to ALS. And somebody, Doug, I hold near and dear to my heart, Mr. Steve Gleason, who's a huge fan of my favorite band, Pearl Jam. I was honored to meet Steve Gleason one time backstage at a concert. Really? And have a conversation with him through his pad, right? And so I understand deeply what that disease does, and I can only imagine what the toll it took on you losing loved ones to it. So my condolences there, but how inspirational the foresight your sister Ellen had with a long swim, and now you have with the Chicago River Swim. And you're getting people to swim in the Chicago River, which we're going to talk about. But I want to hear just a little bit more about your competitive swimming in the English Channel, Manhattan Island, the list goes on and on. That's not safe, but it sounds like a lot of fun. But I want to hear a little bit more about that. What were those experiences like? What led you to want to be challenged to such a degree? Because that's pretty cool in itself.
Well, it was, and of course, for most people who are not familiar with marathon distance swimming, the English Channel is the one that everybody's heard of. And so, of course, it had a huge appeal and motivation for us. And I started, doing the training and swimming in the lakes around here. And we're suburban Chicago. So, of course, Lake Michigan is a fabulous resource, and some of the lakes out in the suburbs and so on. And you start to get used to the fact that you really don't know where you're going, unlike in a pool where you've got a nice black line on the bottom. And then there are all these other variables that get reintroduced that the pool had taken away. Sometimes the water's cold, sometimes the water's wavy. Sometimes you have to contend with wildlife. So it's a real eye opener and so on. So we had, to get ready for the English Channel swim, I swam the length of Tampa Bay down in Florida. And we were kind of coalescing our team. And it was my wife, Susan, who had the idea of making our kids the team, the support crew and everything else, which was brilliant. And so our kids have really been the ones who have supported these swims as we've gone along. So we started out, the Tampa Bay is 24 miles long. And it was a real learning experience. One of the things that we learned is how painful it is to be stung by jellyfish. But that's that's one of those uncontrollables that
Sure.
open water swimmers deal with. And then it was the English Channel that late that summer, which is 22 miles, but it's a swim you can't swim straight because of the tidal currents and so forth. You end up swimming in sort of a big Z-shaped pattern, so it took us 33 miles to make 22. Wow. But long, cold.
How long does that take? Like, how long does 33 miles take you?
It took me 14 hours, and which is about average for that. Again, because conditions can vary so much, Chris. Between days of the week, weeks of the summer, and so forth. It's the times can be all over the place. There was one fellow who did it in 7 hours, and then there are other people who've been at 22. So it's a little bit all over the map. So it was sure fun and rewarding to land that swim. The following year, we swam the Catalina Channel out in California, which is Santa Catalina Island, and you swim mostly north to a shore that is kind of west of Long Beach. That's one where you start at midnight and then swim into the daytime. So that's a little bit of an eye opener. The one thing that's real exciting about that swim is that the last 3 miles get real cold, and it has to do with some underwater geography.
Sure.
Really, it's a very deep trench and so forth. And the bad news is it gets cold all of a sudden. The good news is you've only got 3 miles to go. And so that was
we could talk all day about swimming. As you know, I'm an athlete. I'm a competitor. I want to connect with athletes like yourself. I could never imagine being in a body of water for 14 hours, swimming 33 miles for 22. Like, that's just insane to me. And we can go on and on, but we have some very important topics to cover, right? That is your effort on September 20th, Sunday, September 20th. You're organizing 500 swimmers to jump in another dangerous body of water, the Chicago River, here, both in our hometown of Chicago. And those individuals are all alongside of you, going to be raising money for ALS and water safety. So talk briefly about how this idea came to be. I know last year was your first year, 2025, which was a huge success. 2026 is going to be even bigger. I saw a press conference most recently with Mayor Brandon Johnson of the city of Chicago announcing and highlighting your efforts in the Chicago River Swim. So talk a little bit about what it is you're doing on Sunday, September 20th, before we talk about dinner on the river.
Yeah, so you described it, a 1 mile or 2 mile option. It's a long loop course that goes right along the Riverwalk. It's as though the city built a stadium just for us. So the swim starts kind of near the Dearborn Street Bridge. The swimmers go east, just past the State Street Bridge, then button hook back to the Lake Street Bridge by Wolf Point area and so forth, and then finish back at Clark Street. So it's a long loop course, and we're taking registrations now at ChicagoRiverSwim.org, and it looks very promising. Last year we had only a few weeks of prep time before we were able to pull it together, and it was really very successful. The backstory to this, Chris, is kind of interesting. We had heard about another swim that was done in the canals of Amsterdam. And we got in touch with the race organizers and so forth. And boy, the more videos we looked at, the more we thought this really looks like the Chicago River. And thinking that it was going to be easy to get it approved and move it forward and so forth. 13 years later, we finally had swimmers in the water. But one of the other things that we learned, kind of in historic perspective, is that 100 years ago they were very active with swims in the river, and this was on the heels of them reversing the Chicago River, the flow of the Chicago River, in the year 1900. And then from 1908 until 1927, they would have these annual swims. And we saw old Tribune articles saying that they were attracting the top swimmers in the world and 100,000 spectators and all this other stuff. And having grown up as a swimmer, I never knew that until we started to research a little bit. But the swimmer who won it the last 2 years that they had at 26 and 27 was none other than Johnny Weissmuller himself. So
interesting.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun to sort of dig back into the archives to rebuild this thing.
Amazing. I have so many questions, right? Obviously, being a Chicago native myself, you hear horror stories about the Chicago River, right? How many bodies are dumped in there? They dye it green every St. Patrick's Day. So I have a few questions. And, obviously, as you mentioned, 13 years of back and forth trying to understand how you can accomplish this exercise to raise money and awareness for ALS and water safety. What are some of the hurdles you have to overcome on a yearly basis? I heard Mayor Johnson talking about bacteria levels possibly in the water that may cancel the swim that day. So what are some of the challenges that we all may know but not really think of when it comes to organizing an event like this?
Yeah, you really hit on it, Chris. And I think that what we're dealing with is so much the perception that we have all grown up with around, being from the Chicago area, working in the Loop and so forth. We've always imagined, we've always heard the stories about how dreadful the river is. And like you said, the dead bodies and so forth. As you push a little bit on those stories, by the way, it's always somebody's cousin who saw the dead body. It wasn't the
third cousin twice removed.
Yeah, okay, kind of. Yeah, so some of that. But but it was really after the 1960s into the 70s is where people really started to get alarmed about pollution pollution. That's when the Clean Water Act came along. EPA was formed. Some of those rules were really enforced. So many of the industries that built Chicago in the first place, had to kind of change some of their processes so they weren't spewing stuff into the river and so forth. And the good news about a river is once you stop pouring toxins into it, it cleans itself. And and that's really what we learned and so forth. Trying to break those perceptions though is so important and frankly difficult. So I think that having a few hundred swimmers in the water last September started to break some of those perceptions. Doing it again this year will just take another big step at that. But boy, the
breaking
people
barriers and destigmatizing things, right, is what
Absolutely.
I'm all about and what you're doing, right? Like proving to others that the river is safe, right, with proper precautions taken and certain studies being done. And obviously we want to make sure everybody's healthy, but it's safe. And with done properly, we can do it. I often laugh, right? And this is where Sia comes in. Her message to you backstage. There's so many questions I'm having Chris ask, but we were talking about one of the most famous stories of the Chicago River. You may know this. I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan. And many moons ago, his tour bus was driving over a bridge and they let out their septic tank into the Chicago River and caught some slack for it, rightfully so. Right. But these are the types of stories we hear about the Chicago River. And I'm so glad you're changing the narrative, and not only changing the narrative of the river itself and the waterway and the body of water that it is, but you're creating and changing a narrative for ALS and raising awareness and money for that, as well as water safety. And so if you haven't already, I want to encourage you, please go to ChicagoRiverSwim.org. Sia's put up that QR code several times. If you haven't scanned it, there it is. Please scan it now. It will take you directly to Chicago River Swim's website. Once again, that's ChicagoRiverSwim.org. And there on your website, you will also find information for an exciting event coming up May 8th at Legal Seafoods on the river. We're calling it Dinner on the River, another effort to raise money and awareness for ALS and water safety. I'm so honored to work alongside you, Doug, as your auctioneer for the evening. And so if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that event, what it's all about, and how much fun are we going to have?
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's sort of an ideal perch over the river to see where the race course is and all the rest of it, and so many of those buildings on the north side of the river had been big warehouses, and now that Chicago is no longer turning its back to the river, what a wonderful way to celebrate it. We have, there are going to be some of the typical auction packages and things like that, but we're also hosting the ALS researchers that we support over at Northwestern's med school, and a couple of the kids that we've been able to get through those swimming lessons. And it's interesting. You've mentioned the water safety a couple of times. We devoted $50,000 in both 024 and 025 to swim lessons, particularly focused on Chicago children in some of these underserved neighborhoods. And, for those of us who've grown up swimming, we realize what an important skill that is, life-saving skill. And we're behind it 100%.
Yeah, it's so inspirational, and I say that word often, but it really is. And as you may know, I have a background in Parks and Rec, and I understand the importance of water safety, swim lessons. Not only are they fun and provide kids hours of entertainment in the summer, but it is life-saving, right? And it really
Absolutely.
is critical in many ways to prevent drownings and things of that sort. So thank you for all your work. Thank you for dedicating $50,000 over the last twice, so $100,000 over the last 2 years towards underprivileged Chicago youth and helping make sure that they get swim lessons. And you're also raising money for ALS. And Doug, we can go on and on. This has been just such an inspirational, informative, exciting, invigorating conversation. It makes me want to jump in the water myself. And maybe I'll have to do that. I don't know if I'll make it all 2 miles, but before we sign off, I always want to give my guests the opportunity. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything I missed? And of course, and most importantly, let folks know where they can get in contact with you, your email address, site. And again, please scan the QR code, folks. It'll take you directly to Chicago River Swim's website. But the floor is now yours.
Well, thank you. And it's interesting. It's been a long pull to get this event going and so forth. And I have to say that I'm not typically a get tears in your eyes kind of guy, but to see those swimmers jump in the river and be so enthusiastic and so excited about the event last year, I got tears in my eyes, and it was a long way to go to make that happen. I think the to watch these brilliant ALS researchers and the progress that they're making, and to be able to move forward even at a frustrating pace, but a positive pace to get to a cure for this disease. I mean, it's the same thing that we've seen in cancer in my lifetime. And so I couldn't be more optimistic about the great work that they're doing. We're honored to be part of it, to be able to help fund it. I'm just the luckiest guy you'll ever meet.
Well, I feel just as lucky having you as a guest on the show, and getting to work alongside of you and the team with Chicago River Swim. As we said, May 8th at Legal Seafoods. Tickets are now available. So scan that QR code. It'll take you directly to ChicagoRiverSwim.org. There you can find out all the wealth of information on their website about the activities, the events, the resources that they provide. And of course, you can make a donation. So please, if you can, kick a buck or two their way and purchase a ticket for May 8th. And then if you are so inclined to want to jump into the Chicago River, applications are still being accepted until April 27th. So up to 500 swimmers, I believe, is the number, Doug, that will be allowed to enter into the river on the 20th of September. So please fill out that application immediately. And Doug, today's just been so fun. I can't thank you enough for being a guest on the show. It's been so fun. But as you heard earlier, this show is not possible without our presenting sponsor, my personal tattoo artist and shop, Speakeasy Custom Tattoo in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago. As we all know, this show is definitely not possible without CAS Tornrat and her production company, Brilliant Beam Media, who I just love and makes me look good every week. If that's a hard job in itself. And today's just been a great show. Thanks to all of you watching on Instagram. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube, LinkedIn. Be sure to go to ChicagoRiverSwim.org. Check me out at hailhailauctions.com. Have a great rest of your day. Hail, hail.
Thanks, Chris.
Falling asleep with your neck in the wrong position can be a real pain in the neck. Literally. People of all ages are falling for Tossie. Tossie gives you the comfort you've always dreamed of. Go to TossieBrands.com and get your comfort on.